to Not to Self, the video podcast series where I talk about different topics in different times, the personal opinion of myself. Uh, to everyone who showed me support in my previous videos, thank you very much, and I hope that you will continue to give me the support that you showed in my previous videos as well. To everyone who is joining new, my name is Achal Surya, and this is Not to Self, the video podcast where I talk about my personal opinion on different topics. So, right after you finish your college education, school education, whatever that is, and you start a job in whatever the field that you are going to join, and or do something of your own, one thing that comes to your mind is that you should have a vehicle. You should buy a vehicle. That basically is one of the goals of everyone. So the people who actually have the financial benefit more than others will have the freedom of choosing whatever the vehicle that they want and just spend how much that vehicle costs and just buy that vehicle and ride it. But most of the people have to think more than twice when they are going to invest in something like a vehicle. Why I'm talking about this topic today is very recently I came across several situations where people are trying to buy their very first vehicle, and they have doubts. They have doubts in selecting their very first vehicle, and they have doubts whether the market is going up, whether the market is going down, or whether this is the right time to invest, or what kind of a vehicle they should invest. So this is not a professional opinion that I'm going to give you, but my personal opinion on how you should just go around in selecting your first vehicle, because vehicles is actually an investment that you do. So let's talk steps in that. Basically, why do you need a vehicle? So first of all, vehicle, if you are seeing that as a status symbol, then I don't think this video is for you, because if that's the case, then you should be having enough and more money that you can buy whatever the vehicle that you want, and you don't have to actually think about the fuel consumption or whatever the other facts that is related to it. But if the word vehicle gives you somewhat of a goosebumps, then I think you should have something to get from this video. When I was very little, my father used to tell me a story where when they were kids and when they were schooling, they actually had these two rules, the right hand rule and the left hand rule. You know, the right hand rule and the left hand rule from the scientific perspective is two different things, thumb rules and stuff. But this right hand rule and left hand rule, what my father told me was about how they spend money in their school cafeteria. So basically, when you get a menu or when you see a price list of a food items, you have the list of foods at one side and you have the prices at the other side. So if you have enough money, then you use the right hand rule. You cover the prices, you read the food list and choose whatever the food that you want to eat. But if you don't have enough money, and if you feel that the money that you have, you need to have that for something else, then what you do is go for the left hand rule. You cover the list of foods, you just look at the prices and you select from the prices. So I think the same thing can be applied to not literally the same thing, but something like that can be applied when you are going to choose your vehicle as well. So first, what you need to look at is your budget. How much can you spend? Because if you have to spend all your earnings, all your savings and everything to buy a vehicle, then definitely it's not going to work, because you will not be able to live yourself after that. So before you do that, before you put all the earnings and savings into a vehicle, you need to consider a few steps. Think how much that you can spare from whatever the earnings and savings that you have. if you have an idea of going for a loan or a lease, then think about how much you can spend for a loan or a lease per month without having to spend the whole salary that you get on a loan or a lease. Just calculate and see how much you are comfortable with spending, because it's a monthly cost. If you have enough cash to buy a car at one go, then it's fine, but most of the time it's not the case. Then what you need to see is some other monthly cost that is incurred within buying a vehicle and maintaining a vehicle. So the fuel cost, the fuel cost actually depends on the efficiency of the performance and the efficiency of the vehicle that you're going to select. So think about how much you will be able to spend for fuel as well. Calculate that. And the general maintenance of a vehicle. Plus, you need to have some miscellaneous expenses where you might encounter tire punctures, you might encounter some other small maintenance services. If a fuse is not working, you will have to replace that. Those kind of miscellaneous expenses are also there. Plus, for 5,000 kilometers, generally in Sri Lanka, every 5,000 kilometers or in every 6 months, you will have to do general grade maintenance of a vehicle. So for that also, you need to spend some amount. So that is also something that you should consider when you're going to when you're going to commit yourself into buying a vehicle. Again, you also have insurance. So it depends on what you're going to put, the third-party insurance, the full insurance, or whatever that is. But still, there's an amount that you will have to incur within insurance as well. Even though that's an amount that you spend once a year, you just separate that into 12 months and see how much that you will spend per month, and see whether that's comfortable with you, and see whether that's okay if you spend that amount of money, whether you will be able to survive yourself from the rest of the money that you have. And also think that if you are going to spend the whole salary in a vehicle and just the living expenses will add up to the whole salary that you get, then there's a problem as well. Because my personal opinion, it's better if you can have a savings from whatever you get. For we don't know what will happen, but for the safety, it's better you can have a saving. So consider all those and do some general maths calculations, and then see how much that you can spend on a vehicle, and see what are the vehicles that actually covers the fuel expenses, that actually has the performance of whatever the expense that you can spend on fuel is being covered, and the general grade maintenance is also in the range of what you can actually spend in every 5,000 kilometers or 6 months, and check about the spare parts prices, and because definitely the miscellaneous expenses will add up to spare part prices at some point as well, and the general insurance prices, because when it comes to insurance prices, depending on the spare part prices of the vehicles, the insurance will definitely increase or decrease. So I think that's also a point that you need to consider. And if you are going to go to a second-hand vehicle or a registered vehicle and buy it from a person who is actually currently using it in Sri Lanka, then think about how we are going to get rid of that vehicle at some point, if I say that, because you're not going to keep it for the whole time period of your life, but you will upgrade at some point. So you just think about if that vehicle is worth buying and being the second or the third or the fourth or the whatever the owner that you're going to be, and at some point if you want to sell it, then what would be the situation? Would that have that market? Would that have the value that you are going to incur to, and would that have the same return for the investment that you get? So I think those are the main points that you will have to think about when you are going to commit into an investment like a vehicle, because let's face it, it's not right. Real estate investments in Sri Lanka, real estate investments are increasing daily. If you invest 1,000 rupees today, by tomorrow it might be 2,000. We don't know. But when it comes to vehicle, it's depreciating, and because of the fact that it's depreciating, most of the time the value is going down, unless the taxes or other miscellaneous stuff is going to be changed. Then the value of the vehicle is definitely going down. So to get the return on investment, and to make it a wise investment, I think you should actually have to consider those facts: the insurance, the general maintenance, the leasing or the loan that you're going to pay, the miscellaneous expenses, the fuel. Everything needs to be considered beforehand you go and buy a vehicle. So it's more like the left hand rule, what I said earlier, where you cover the models of the vehicle and then check on the pricings and the expenses and everything. Then you open up and see what actually fits you. It will be very great that if we had the liberty of going for the right hand rule in that, where you just can go through whatever the model you want and you just look at the pricing. Okay, this is this much, okay, I'll pay this and buy that vehicle. But for most of the people it's not the case. It's the general scenario, it's not the case. And most of the people want to buy a vehicle to make it easier for themselves, to make it easier for their families, and to make their lives easier basically. But sometimes people do bad investments and go for just the model and the status of the vehicle, and end up just selling it or end up being broke at some point. So it's from my personal perspective, it's very wise if you can do that calculation and see whether you are able to afford that. From whatever the income that you get, you should be able to maintain that, you should be able to live your life, you should be able to pay for other things that you have, plus you should be able to have a saving for yourself. Take it like this: if you invest in a vehicle and you buy a vehicle and you at some point sell the vehicle, say in 1 or 2 years time, then definitely you will feel the urge to upgrade your vehicle. You will not sell the vehicle and go to a vehicle that is less costly, or 99% of the time it's not the case. You will definitely go for an upgrade. So to go for an upgrade, you will have to have some kind of a saving for yourself, or you will have to extend the loan that you have taken, or you will again have to go for a lease. So think of the future as well when you do an investment in the current situation. I think that would save a lot of trouble that most of the people are currently going through. So if you can just if you have the liberty to buy whatever the vehicle that you want without considering the pricing, then you are super lucky, and you are just a few people in Sri Lanka, let alone the world, basically in the world actually, who can do something like that. In countries like Sri Lanka, let's face it, in countries like Sri Lanka, the taxes are really high on vehicles. So the so even when you are going to do an investment on a vehicle like that, then you should have your doubts, and people around you will have their doubts also, to present you saying that this might not work. But at the end of the day, everybody likes to have a vehicle, everybody will love to have a vehicle, and it's basically like their right to have a vehicle. So go ahead and buy a vehicle, but maybe we should consider those points as well, and it will, I think, will be useful for you for a great investment, which will actually have a return at the end of the time period that you have used it. So yeah, I think I have given you some few points on to think about when you go for your first vehicle. And I think you can consider those points, and you will be able to make a better buying decision at the end of the day. So that's about it for this video, and I hope you got something out of it, and hopefully we'll be seeing you in another video in a very short time. Stay safe. Bye bye.